welcome to our fourth and final Moody Talk on guilt. So, if you haven't tuned into our other talks, I highly suggest you go back. The first one, we talk about what guilt is, how it feels in our body, what are the words that we use to describe it in their intensity, right? And then we get into what types of guilt there are out there, for human beings. What types of guilt do we feel? And because I chose December to do guilt, I focus on a guilt that is seasonal, which, when people are depressed, if someone's in a depression during the holidays, that they may feel guilty that they're not giving 100% of themselves to their family and friends and loved ones, and how that can really cause that guilt that is really unjustified, right? When people love each other, they understand when others are in a different place than they are. And hopefully there'd be communication in that sense so that you can talk about why you're not feeling really full of the holiday cheer, and how others feel about that, and get to understand each other, right? So we talk about a bunch of different things like that, and I hope that you'll go back and watch. This week we're going to discuss how to get out of that guilt funk. Okay. We talked about when guilt is justified and unjustified. And guilt that is justified means that you have gone against your own personal moral values. Okay. You've done something outside of the parameter of what you consider a value. Okay. And that you have hurt someone or made a bad situation because of that choice. Unjustified is when you follow your morals and your values and others are upset about it. And they make you feel bad because you've chosen yourself over them. And another big unjustified is when you choose to say no and they don't like that. That is unjustified guilt. Okay. So, regardless of us justified and unjustified guilt, feeling guilt in general is a real downer. And we need to sometimes pull ourselves out of that by creating positive feelings for ourselves, right? So I'm going to get into it. We have a whole step by step of working on creating long term positive emotions. Now, this is not outside of your own values. This is not shame, which is a totally different, well, it's not totally different, but it's a different emotion. And that emotion of shame is based on going against the values of a social group that you're in. So that has nothing to do with this. This is guilt, personal guilt. Okay. So we're going to talk about creating long-term positive emotions. Okay. This is a great coping skill when you are living with long-term guilt or toxic guilt. Using these steps can help with understanding your values and your priorities. So this is going to go deeper into, you actually sitting down and figuring out what are your morals and values. It's a longer coping skill to work with, but it's extremely effective. Because when you sit down and you really think about your own, your own values, your own morals and judgments, and even write them down so that you have a true understanding of what you stand for, right? Then you're able to share those and find a social group that also feels the same morals and values and judgment, right? So that's what this is going to help with. So we're going to go step by step. Okay, we're going to start with 1, stop avoiding the guilt. Okay, stop avoiding it. Then we're going to talk about 2, identify your values. 3, identify a value to work on. 4, create some goals to work on. 5, choose one goal. 6, find small steps to take for that value. And then 7, take that first step. Okay? So number 1, stop avoiding. It's a big one. Don't run away from the guilt you feel. It's necessary to feel and understand before moving forward. So, getting to know your guilt, getting to understand why you're feeling that guilt, remembering back to the situation. And, again, asking, is it justified or unjustified? If it's justified, it means that you took an action that went against your own values and you may have caused disruption, or you've harmed someone because of that, or you've destroyed a relationship. You can go as far as, you were taken to jail because of it. Like that's a big one. Like maybe it's a memory of drunk driving and something bad had happened in that. So you feel that guilt. Don't run away from it. Remember the situation, remember what happened, and sit with that feeling. It's really hard. Talked about this many times before. It is hard to sit with it, but it's something we need to do to be able to move forward because emotions don't last forever. You feel them and then you move on. Okay. 2, what are your values? Identify what values you need to understand the guilt and if it is justified. Just as I said, if it's justified, then you're thinking on the situation, you're thinking on the guilt, and making decisions on what kind of values you want to go with moving forward. If it's unjustified, like you've said no to someone and they're pissed off, that's a different thing. Okay. Us feeling that unjustified guilt needs to be recognized and understood as unjustified. I think this is more along the lines of we're talking about justified guilt here. So, number 3, if more than one value, choose a single value to work on. Okay. So, let's use the example of drunk driving. You've had the situation happen and you knew that it was wrong to drive while you've been drinking. And maybe you make the decision. I mean, you can make any decision you want around this, but maybe you make the decision that you're going to stop drinking. That's it. You're just going to stop drinking. You're now sober. And that's an important step and an important choice for your own values. Seeing what went wrong when you were doing something and choosing to stop doing that thing. Okay. So, 4, think of some goals you want for this value. Maybe it's to understand your feeling about this value and why you chose to follow it or ignore it, right? Again, maybe it has something to do with the amount that you drink or, any legal activity that you do that maybe you overuse, okay? This is just one example, and it doesn't mean that, if you have an accident or something that you must do something like really, to the far end of things like going sober. But if you choose to do something like that, that's a value that you've decided on, and now you need to figure out the goals that you're going to have. If maybe it's I go to an AA meeting. I go to my first meeting. And even though that's really scary and really can, be very hard to do, and then maybe the goal of I'm not going to drink for the next day or two. If it's something that you do often, maybe you choose to not do that in this moment. Maybe you choose you're not going to drink socially any longer. So, going out with friends and not having a drink. That can be a goal that you have. Okay. And let's go to 5. Here we go. Choose one goal to work on immediately. Maybe you want to do some work for a group that follows the same value you are working on. So maybe not even working for a group, but going to a group. So AA, going to Alcoholics Anonymous, to one of their meetings. Maybe that's the first goal that you work on immediately. Okay. 6, identify small steps to work on this goal. Even something as small as starting a membership with a group and watching how the group works. Again, It's the AA thing. You can go and just sit and not talk during it. You can just observe, right? You can make your presence known, but they don't force you to talk. So maybe that's the first step, right? You go in, you sit and you observe and you take it in. Okay. And then finally, 7, take that one small step immediately, regardless of nerves or talking yourself out of making the first step. Okay. So do it quick, right? Find a meeting. Maybe a meeting isn't going on in your town. Maybe it's in the town over. So you decide that you're going to go to that meeting, even if it's not going to be your main place to go to that meeting, right? So that's just one example of how we can work through and talk through the things that we need to do to create positive feelings for ourselves again. Okay. And it's really important during this time of year as well because we tend to bring up those memories that are hard to deal with. And so if we can make one step towards doing the thing that we want to create as a new value for ourselves, right? That can go a long way when it comes to, identifying yourself and creating an identity that feels good for you, that feels right. Okay. So I hope that those steps help and that this coping skill is something that you'll look into. We all have parts of our lives that we don't feel great about and we feel guilt about, and that's okay. But at some point, we need to take ourselves out of the negative feelings about ourselves and create new positive ones based on values that we agree with. And then you can go out into the world and find the people who do the same values, who have those same values, and you can become a part of a community that really helps you grow and helps you to become more positive about yourself. So I hope that this month, the talking about guilt really helped. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, please put them below, or you can DM me or email me at jen@mymoodymonster.com. If you need to talk more about it, get a little bit more understanding of coping skills that you can use. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.